He gave his jacket to a crying mom at the bus stop. What happened 7 days later? The wind howled that night like a warning. Rain slammed against the pavement in icy sheets, soaking everything, unforgiving. Daniel had just missed the last bus and was cursing himself for staying late again. His bookstore shift had dragged, like most nights since the accident. He shoved his hands deep into his coat pockets, collar up, head down. That's when he saw her. Woman, soaked to the bone, clutching a bundled baby close to her chest. Her lips were trembling, not just from cold, from something deeper. Fear, grief, maybe both. She sat on the broken bench. At the bus stop, eyes red, makeup streaked from tears and rain. Her thin cardigan clung to her skin, like paper. She didn't look up as Daniel approached. "Here," he said softly, taking off his jacket. "Take this." She blinked, startled. Her arms instinctively shielded the child. "Please," Daniel added, voice low. "The baby needs it more than I do." She hesitated, then took it. Their fingers brushed. Her eyes flickered with something, not just gratitude, but disbelief. Daniel nodded and turned away, walking into the storm without a second thought. He never even got her name. 1 week later, Daniel returned to his quiet life. Books, dust, silence. No one had called, no messages, just the same routine. Until exactly 7 days later, a strange coat hung by the shop door. Not his. Expensive. Designer. Woolen. There was a note pinned to the inside pocket. "You saved me when no one else would. I hope this brings you warmth the way you did for me and my daughter." Underneath it, a hand-drawn picture. A little girl holding hands with a man in a green jacket, drawn, with crayon hearts all around. Daniel stared. His hands trembled. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat in the worn leather armchair beside his dusty bookshelf, staring at the coat. The smell of baby powder and lavender still clung. Claire visited the shop almost every day after that. At first, she claimed it was for Emily. "She likes the smell of books," she said shyly, cheeks flushing. But Daniel knew better, and he didn't mind. He found reasons to reorganize the children's section, placed small toys on the lower shelves, always had something warm brewing in the back room, tea, hot cocoa, sometimes just warm milk. Emily began to smile at him. Real, toothless baby smiles that lit up her whole face. Claire laughed more too. At first, it came in small bursts, like a sound she had forgotten how to make. Then freely. Her laughter made the shop feel warmer, fuller. Daniel never asked too many questions, and Claire never gave more than she wanted to. He didn't know her last name, didn't know where she stayed, but he noticed how her coat was always the same, slightly frayed, how her shoes were worn thin at the soles, and how Emily's cheeks were always cold when they arrived. So he made small gestures. A heater near the children's nook, a handmade scarf left on the back of the chair, a stack of baby blankets by the reading rug. She never said thank you with words, but her eyes, God, her eyes, said everything. Daniel's passed. One night, long after they had gone, Daniel sat by the window and stared at the rain. It reminded him of the night Anna died. They had been coming home from dinner. She had insisted on walking instead of taking the car. "Let's enjoy the rain," she'd said. Her laugh still echoed in his mind, full of life. The truck had come out of nowhere, ran the red light. He remembered the scream, the crunch of metal, the way her hand slipped out of his as the world went silent. He hadn't smiled in a year after that. Until now. Until Claire's secrets. Claire was trying not to fall in love with the bookstore, or the man who ran it. Daniel was everything her ex-husband was not. Gentle, observant, quietly funny. He didn't brag. He didn't demand. He simply was, and that was more. The days that followed felt different. Warmer, softer, and full of something Claire had almost forgotten. Stability. After Emily's fever passed, Claire stayed in the small upstairs room above the bookstore. It was never meant to be a living space, just a dusty old storage loft, but Daniel cleared it out in a single night. He brought up a mattress, plugged in a tiny space heater, and even fixed the broken lamp in the corner. Claire offered to leave every morning. And every morning, Daniel would hand her a fresh cup of tea and say, "Only if you want to." She didn't. Emily thrived in the quiet rhythm of the store. She learned to crawl between poetry shelves and babble excitedly at storybooks. Claire helped around the shop, shelving, cleaning, sometimes managing the till when Daniel had errands to run. It gave her a sense of purpose, belonging. At night, they'd eat simple dinners together. Grilled cheese, soup, sometimes leftovers Claire whipped up with whatever was in the tiny kitchenette. Daniel didn't say it, but he hadn't eaten this well in months. Sometimes they'd talk for hours. Other times they just sat in comfortable silence, listening to the storm outside or the creak of old wooden floors. It was, in many ways, the life neither of them had dared to hope for. One afternoon, Daniel found an envelope tucked under the bookstore door. No return address, just his name in elegant handwriting. Inside was a formal letter from Henry Langford's attorneys. It stated, in cold legal language, that Claire Langford had kidnapped her child, and that legal action was being pursued. Custody suit, an injunction, a warning that aiding her could result in consequences. Daniel's blood ran cold. He didn't show it to Claire right away, but she noticed his silence, his furrowed brow. "What is it?" she asked, holding Emily close. Daniel looked at her. "Your father is threatening to take Emily." Claire's face drained of color. She sat down slowly, like the words had K. They talked late into the night. Daniel wanted to fight. "We can get you a lawyer. There are shelters. We can raise funds." But Claire knew better. "They have power, Daniel. They'll find a way to paint me as unstable. Homeless. I'm a single mom with no job, no assets. And my father has friends in high places." Daniel clenched his fists. "You're not alone anymore." Claire reached for his hand. "I know." She was quiet for a long time, then said, "There's one thing I haven't told you." Daniel turned to her. "I have access to a trust. It's been locked since Emily was born. My mother set it up before she died. My father doesn't control it. But to claim it, I'd have to go public, go back into that world." Daniel blinked. "So what's stopping you?" She looked at Emily sleeping between them. "I wanted her to grow up with freedom, not headlines, not surrounded by people who love money more than people." Daniel nodded slowly. "But maybe," Claire whispered, "fighting back is the only way to give her that freedom." The news. The next morning, Claire called a woman named Julia, an old friend of her mother's and now a journalist for a major outlet. 2 days later, a story broke. "Missing heiress speaks out. Why I left the Langford Empire." The piece was powerful, vulnerable. Claire spoke of abuse, of fear, of choosing motherhood over money. She refused to be anonymous anymore. Public support exploded. The hashtag Let Claire Choose trended for days. Donations poured in, messages of love, legal aid offers, even a statement from a senator supporting her right to raise her child without coercion. Henry Langford's team backpedaled, calling it a family misunderstanding, but the damage was done. Claire was free, a quiet celebration. That night, Daniel closed the shop early. They ordered takeout, Chinese. Claire used chopsticks like a pro. Daniel fumbled hilariously, making Emily giggle every time he dropped something. They laughed until they cried. At one point, Daniel looked across the table, eyes soft. "Can I ask you something?" Claire nodded. "When all this fades, when things settle, where do you want to be?" Claire looked at him. "Right here," she said. Daniel swallowed. "I've been afraid to hope," he said. "But if you'd stay, if you'd both stay, this place would finally feel like home again." Claire stood, walked over, and kissed his forehead. "We're already home." 1 year later, the bookstore now had a new sign above it. The Reading Nest Books, Coffee and Hope. Claire ran the front counter. Daniel handled the book orders. Emily had her own corner, a baby librarian nook, with bean bags and picture books. The community had rallied. They held readings, donated shelves, brought used books by the boxful. People came not just for novels, but for warmth, for healing. And at the back of the shop, on a small wall, hung a framed crayon drawing. A little girl, a man in a green jacket, a woman with stars in her eyes. Underneath it, a handwritten quote: "Kindness doesn't always change the world, but it changes someone's world." One evening, after the last customer left, Claire found Daniel standing at the window, lost in thought. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Daniel turned. "That night, at the bus stop, I gave you my jacket, thinking it was just a kind thing to do." Claire smiled. "It was, but it gave me back more than I ever expected." She stepped into his arms, resting her head on his chest. "And you gave me the one thing I never had, a reason to believe in people again." Outside, the wind howled, but inside, the light was warm, and love, quiet and strong, held them together.